Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I am Deepika Mehtu, and coming up in the next half an hour. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu dissolves his war cabinet, denouncing tactical pauses announced by the army in Gaza fighting. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan holds comprehensive discussion with External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and India's NSA Ajit Doval with a focus on bilateral, regional and global issues. Rescue operation completes in West Bengal train mishap. Restoration is currently underway after a goods train hit Kanchanjungha Express in West Bengal in India today morning. Central government announces ex gratia. Railways Minister rushes to the accident site. And Bangladesh secures a place in Super 8's defeating Nepal. ICC announces venue, fixtures and schedule for Super 8 T20 Cricket World Cup. India to face Afghanistan in Barbados. So those were the top headlines of the hour that we are tracing for all our viewers here on DD India Live. And now to begin with the top international update. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has disbanded the 6-member war cabinet following the departure of centrist former General Benny Gantz from the government. Netanyahu will now consult with a smaller group of ministers, including Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer, who were part of the war cabinet. The decision comes amid pressure from nationalist religious coalition partners to expand the war cabinet, a move that could strain relations with international allies such as the United States. The forum was originally established when Gantz joined Netanyahu in a national unity government at the beginning of the Gaza war in October last year. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the army continue to spar over the Gaza strategy. Now, in the latest, Netanyahu has denounced the army's plan to hold daily pauses in fighting along one of the main zones into Gaza to facilitate aid delivery. Netanyahu called the daily 11-hour humanitarian pause as unacceptable, while the military clarified that normal operations would continue in Rafah. Last week, former General Benny Gantz quit the government, accusing Netanyahu of having no effective post-conflict strategy in Gaza. As fighting in Gaza continued, conflict across the Israel-Lebanon border is now threatening to spiral into a wider war as near-daily exchanges of fire between Israeli forces and the Hezbollah militia have escalated. A dense cloud of smoke was seen rising over the hilly frontier in southern Lebanon on Sunday. Last week, the Hezbollah launched the largest volley of rockets and drones in the 8 months as it's been exchanging fire with the Israeli military in parallel with the Gaza war. The US and France are working on a negotiated settlement to the hostilities alongside Lebanon's southern border. Hezbollah said that it will not halt fire unless Israel stops its military offensive on Gaza. For its part, an Israeli military official said that Israel will take the necessary measures to protect its civilians until security along the country's border with Lebanon is restored. An advisor to the US president is traveling to Israel on Monday for meetings to avoid a further escalation along the blue line between Israel and Lebanon. Attacks between Israel and the Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon have led to worries of a deeper war across West Asia. DD India Sarah Coates gives us more updates from Tel Aviv.
Heard from the Prime Minister yesterday. He told a cabinet meeting that this is a country with an army, not an army with a country, really laying bare these divisions between the military echelon and also the government. Now, they've really been falling out over a number of issues over the past few months, and we saw this really brought into the light yesterday when the military did announce this tactical pause to get more aid into the Strip, which was quickly refuted by the Prime Minister, who said he didn't know anything about it. The Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, said he's dissolved this very limited war cabinet, and this is, of course, on the back of the departure of the War Cabinet member Benny Gantz just last week, and also that observer Gadi Eisenkot. Now, there is a lot of concern that this void may now be filled by the far-right elements of the government, specifically Itamar Ben-Gvir, the National Security Minister, who's really been pushing for a seat on this very, very small cabinet. But Netanyahu has just come out to say that he will now continue to consult with a limited forum for very sensitive decisions, specifically Itamar Ben-Gvir, the National Security Minister, and also the Finance Minister, Bezalel Smotrich. We do need to remember how much pressure Netanyahu is under. He relies on these far-right elements to actually stay in power. Also today, the US Special Envoy Amos Hochstein, he'll be here in Israel, and his main job is to really try and de-escalate the situation between Israel and Hezbollah in Israel's north there. Hezbollah, of course, being in Lebanon amid real fears from the Biden administration that if indeed this tension isn't brought under control, that it could potentially spill into a wider regional war.
Moving on to the United Kingdom, and in a grim picture for British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's beleaguered party, 3 British opinion polls released late on Saturday have predicted a wipeout for the Conservatives. And one pollster warned of an electoral extinction in the election scheduled for the 4th of July. Sunak's leadership has been rocked with difficulties, and his sudden decision to announce elections was met with mixed reactions and an exodus of Conservative MPs. In one of the polls by Sunday Times that predicted the Conservatives could end up with just 72 seats in the 650-member House of Commons, which is the lowest in their nearly 200-year-old history, while Labour would win 456 seats. TD India's Stuart Smith gives us more from London.
Likelihood of this election is not that it would go in their favour, and so in terms of worry, this doesn't add anything in terms of their hopes that things were going to lead to a victory for the Conservative Party, but it does, as you suggest, provide further embarrassing data that suggests that the Conservative Party is heading for what's potentially a historic defeat, with one of those polls suggesting indeed the lowest result in their 200-year history when it comes to seats. One of the other polls that took place over the weekend and cast more information about the way things are heading 3 weeks into this general election campaign is that the Labour Party has increased its support, so 2 percentage points more since polling 5 days before then, and in terms of the Conservatives, 4 percentage points worse than the poll conducted 5 days before. So only going in the wrong direction for the Conservative Party, meaning any hope of trying to change the trajectory in these last 2.5 weeks of campaigning is ever fading away ever faster. Now, if the Labour Party does manage to achieve that 25% percentage point lead as predicted by one of the polls, that would be a lead not seen since the short-lived Prime Minister Liz Truss, and in terms of support for the Conservative Party, that would be at its lowest since the dying days of Theresa May's premiership in 2019.
European leaders are gathering for the first informal meeting in Brussels on Monday since the European Parliament election. Now, leaders will debate policy goals for the next 5 years, from defence to economy. Firstly, the leaders are to discuss who should be the next president of the European Commission and European Council and the foreign policy chief. Germany's Ursula von der Leyen is in prime position to secure a second term as the head of the European Union executive. Now, while former Portugal Prime Minister Alberto Costa is set to become the next president of the European Council. The leaders are also due to confirm their choices at an European Union summit, which is scheduled to take place from the 27th till the 28th of June. European leaders are also expected to discuss the next 5-year legislative cycle with a stress on common values, defence and economic competitiveness. They are due to confirm their strategic agenda guidance at the end June summit. French election campaign started on Monday for snap polls called by President Macron to combat the far right. Now, Macron unexpectedly called the election following a trouncing of ruling party by Marine Le Pen National Rally in European Parliament elections. Le Pen's Eurosceptic National Rally is leading in opinion polls, while France's left-wing parties have formed a new alliance to fight the election. An Italian nuclear energy firm is hoping to build 20 mini reactors in the United Kingdom. The company, called Nucleo, has signed a partnership to work on a so-called fourth-generation nuclear reactor in Italy. While countries such as France are trying to expand their already extensive nuclear power capacity, Italy is the only G7 member that does not have a single operational nuclear plant. Giles Gibson reports from Rome.
This is the Lakeside Research Centre where scientists are trying to push Italy back into the nuclear age. Private company Nucleo has partnered up with Enea, the Italian government's research agency, to develop smaller fourth-generation nuclear power plants. Instead of using water, the reactors are cooled with liquid lead, which researchers say is much more efficient.
Fourth-generation reactors have another objective: close the fuel cycle. That's why they changed from a water coolant to a liquid metal coolant, sodium or lead. And in this way you can use all the compressed fuel to make an entire reactor charge. It therefore becomes convenient because it doesn't waste fuel, but it reprocesses it and puts it back into circulation. So the goal of the fourth generation is this, while maintaining the safety standards of the third generation.
Italy started building nuclear power plants in the early 1960s, but after a couple of decades, they became politically radioactive.
In 1987, just a year after the Chernobyl disaster, the Italian government held a referendum on nuclear power. And while citizens weren't actually asked whether they wanted to ban it outright, the results led to the final nuclear power station in Italy closing its doors in 1990.
In 2009, the government at the time started looking into building new plants, but the Fukushima disaster in Japan was just around the corner. Another referendum in 2011, in the wake of Fukushima, put a stop to the government's plans. Today, nuclear scientists say the public needs to be educated about this new generation of plants.
From the physical point of view, in principle, a fourth-generation reactor is not very different from previous reactors, because the type of nuclear reaction that takes place inside of them is exactly the same. The difference is in the technological solutions adopted. So rather than a different way of working, from the operational point of view, we talk about new, advanced, safer technological solutions.
While supporters of nuclear power say it could play a key part in decarbonising major economies, environmental groups say it produces huge amounts of toxic waste. While Italy's energy mix is still heavily reliant on natural gas, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's government has been laying the groundwork in Parliament for nuclear power to potentially be switched back on. But even the researchers themselves admit it could be a decade before the first new plant comes online. Giles Gibson in Rome, reporting for DD India.
The Kremlin said on Monday that a Swiss conference on the Ukraine crisis had negligible results and showed the futility of holding talks without Russia. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that the results of the meeting were close to zero. He further added that Russia remains open to dialogue with all the countries that intend to conduct it. It is also said that the conference provided Ukraine with a chance to showcase the support from Western allies. Russian President Vladimir Putin will visit North Korea from the 18th till the 19th of June at the invitation of leader Kim Jong-un. Now, this was reported by North Korea's state-run television KRT on Monday. This also marks Putin's first visit to Pyongyang since July 2000. The visit comes amid Russia's efforts to strengthen ties with North Korea amid strained relations with the West due to the Ukraine war. According to the Kremlin, after North Korea, Putin will visit Vietnam from the 19th till the 20th of June. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese raised concerns over human rights in China, the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the Pacific in a meeting with Chinese Premier Li Qiang in Canberra. The case of China-born Australia writer Yang Hangchen, who was handed a suspended death sentence by a Beijing court, was also raised during the meeting. The visit by Li marks a thaw in ties between the two nations after tensions erupted over Beijing blocking $20 billion in Australian exports and friction over defence encounters. Time to take a short break here on DD India Live, but still to come on the other side. India's textile export industry marks a remarkable growth despite unfavourable global economic challenges. And India celebrates Eid al-Adha with prayers and festivities. President Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi extends greetings. In sports, England starts Euro campaign with a 1-0 victory over Serbia on Sunday.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India Live with me, Deepika. Now, a broad range of bilateral, regional and global issues were discussed as Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar held talks with US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan in New Delhi on Monday. Dr. S. Jaishankar said that he was confident that India and US strategic partnership will continue to advance strongly under Modi 3.0 government. Now, this is the first trip to India by a senior American official after the NDA government, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, returned to power. Earlier, the US NSA met his Indian counterpart Ajit Doval. The duo reviewed progress on the India-US initiative on critical and emerging technologies, which is also called as ISET. Sullivan also expected to call on Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well. Now, in the first high-level US-India dialogue post-India's parliamentary election, the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum will hold its 7th annual Leadership Summit in Washington on Monday evening. Now, this annual Leadership Summit is the most prestigious US-India gathering in Washington, D.C., bringing together a distinguished cohort of eminent individuals and key stakeholders from both the countries. The summit will focus on critical and emerging technology initiatives and honouring Henry R. Kravis for his contributions in strengthening the bond between the United States and India. India's textile export industry has marked a remarkable growth despite unfavourable global economic challenges. Now, India's textile exports grew by 9.6% in May 2024 compared to the same month of the previous year. In addition to this, India's apparel exports also saw a growth of 9.9% during the same period. Confederation of Indian Textile Industries report also highlighted the cumulative exports of textiles and apparel in May 2024 that registered a growth of 9.8%. With this, India's overall exports for May 2024 surged to $68 billion. The recently released export data revealed that sectors such as electronic goods, drugs and pharmaceuticals, textile, handloom products performed well in the exports from the country. Moving on now, at least 9 people were killed and over a dozen injured in a train accident when a passenger train, Kanchanjungha Express, was hit by a goods train at Darjeeling in India's eastern state of West Bengal. The Kanchanjungha Express, which links the northeastern Indian states of Assam and Tripura with West Bengal, was hit by a goods train. The rescue operations are nearing the final phase and they have been rather completed, and all necessary measures are being taken care by the central government in collaboration with the state government and the Darjeeling district administration to ensure evacuation of all injured at the earliest, which has been completed now. And now the operation is currently underway to clear the way. Union Minister for Railways Ashwini Vaishnaw has announced an enhanced ex gratia compensation to the victims. It says 1 million in case of death and 250,000 towards grievously injured and 50,000 for minor injuries. Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw took a ride on a motorbike to reach the accident spot. Speaking to the media there, the minister said that the focus is now on rescue and restoration, and this is not a time for politics. Take a listen.
ये पॉलिटिक्स का समय नहीं है। अभी सारा फोकस होना चाहिए रेस्क्यू और रेस्टोरेशन पे। पैसेंजर सेफ्टी के लिए बहुत बड़ा फोकस है, कंप्लीट फोकस है, जैसा आप स्वयं जानते भी हैं। मैं इसके बारे में बाद में डिटेल में चर्चा करूंगा। अभी मैं जरा पहले रेस्क्यू और रेस्टोरेशन ऑपरेशन का पूरा जायजा ले लूं और उसके बाद में पेशेंट से मिलने जाऊंगा।
Now, Madhav Kumar Nepal, who is the former Minister of Nepal, appreciated India's neighbourhood first policy in an event held in Kathmandu with a theme called Indo-Nepal Friendship and Economic Cooperation. During the presentation of the Asia Pacific Excellence Awards to civil societies contributing to the growth of society, former Ambassador of India to Nepal, K.V. Rajan, highlighted the role of civil societies in the upliftment of every society. While addressing the event, Madhav Nepal said that India and Nepal should stand together to fight against the effects of climate change. And now all the updates on the International Day of Yoga, which will be celebrated on the 21st of June. In 3 days from now, the world will mark the 10th International Day of Yoga, celebrating a timeless practice that celebrates oneness and harmony. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi shared a video on his X handle that offers guidance of Bhadrasana and its benefits.
Bhadrasana. Bhadrasana is also known as the auspicious pose in English. This asana helps to make both your body and mind firm. To do Bhadrasana, sit down erect on the floor with your legs stretched out in front of you. Keep your hands beside the hips and palms resting on the floor. Be careful that the weight of your body is not fully on your hands. This pose is called Dandasana. From this posture of Dandasana, slowly release your breath while joining the soles of your feet together. Now, lock your hands with the toes of your feet and slowly bring the heels of your feet as close to your perineum region as possible. In doing so, if your thighs are not touching the ground, then you can support them by keeping a pillow underneath them. Bhadrasana is Viramasana, the state of sitting in one position for a long time. Close your eyes in this position and breathe in and out normally. Bhadrasana keeps the body firm and the mind steady. It strengthens the bones of the knees and hip joints and also reduces pain in the knees. It also helps to remove any kind of stress in the stomach. It also provides relief during the monthly menstrual cycles in women and other problems. It is also beneficial for pregnant women. People suffering from acute arthritis and sciatica should refrain from doing this asana. Keep sitting still in this position for some time. Open your eyes. While slowly taking your breath in, stretch your legs to the front. Stay relaxed in the Dandasana pose for some time. Bhadrasana affects the innermost organs of your body and makes your entire body healthy.
Now, as part of the Yoga Mahotsav organized by High Commission of India in Sri Lanka, yoga session was conducted at the 2,300-year-old sacred Bodhi tree, the Jayasri Mahabodhi. The tree is believed to have been taken from India to Sri Lanka by daughter of Emperor Ashoka, Princess Sangamitra. In addition, events were also organized on the theme Yoga for Humanity at Gandhi Park in Batikalau and Sigiriya Central College. The events were supported by the Art of Living Foundation and Brahma Kumaris. Now, Eid al-Adha, the festival of sacrifice, is being celebrated across India on Monday with immense joy and enthusiasm. Muslims gathered in mosques to offer their prayers. It commemorates the act of a father, Prophet Abraham, obeying the diktat of God, who tests his devotion by asking him to sacrifice that which is dearest to him. The Eid also marks the culmination of the rites of Hajj, one of the pillars of Islam, which involves a visit to Mecca and reenacting the events carried out by Prophet Abraham. It marks the end of the Islamic calendar and the beginning of a new year. You're watching DDN Live, and now it's time to get you all the latest from the world of sports. Bangladesh beat Nepal by 21 runs on Sunday in Kingstown to seal the final spot in the Super 8 phase of the T20 Cricket World Cup. Nepal restricted Bangladesh to 106 after winning the toss and fielding first, but were bowled out for 85 with 4 balls to spare. Now, with this, all the 8 teams in the Super 8 phase of the tournament are decided. The victory put Bangladesh in Group 1 of the Super 8s with India, Australia and Afghanistan. They will now take on India on the 22nd of June. In soccer, Jude Bellingham struck in the first half to give England a 1-0 victory over Serbia in their Euro 2024 opener on Sunday. England are the runners-up in the 2020 edition and seek to finally win a trophy befitting their vast array of attacking talent. After scoring with a header against Serbia, giving the Three Lions a 1-0 lead, Bellingham has now scored England's opening goal of the tournament at the 2022 World Cup and Euro 2024. England are still a side in transition without stalwarts like centre-back Harry Maguire, who's injured, and midfielder Jordan Henderson, who was left out of the Euros, and with several inexperienced players of the squad. And that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Deepika Mehtu, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.